It is a big, big day. It is orange and blue today. 3:30 p.m. Mountain Time, Monday through Friday. It is Cecil, Lammey. It is Andrew Mason. It is the Denver Broncos, and it is a lost season, but perhaps not a lost cause. We will talk about everything here. And Mace, good day. It was good to see you earlier today.
Likewise.
Are you
still
ready?
Here.
Are you ready to talk big picture? You're still in studio. I got to go home.
Yeah. Well, I've got to be over here about 6 o'clock tonight for the DenverFan.com PM edition that I'll be doing with Will Pearson. That's going to be on 104.3 The Fan. But yeah, just hanging out. The conference room. We had a very productive staff meeting today. And,
yes, we did.
Now it's cleared out. Now it's just me. Jake Shapiro was still here, and he just left, and so now I'm all alone. I'm all alone.
It was
again.
all by myself.
As Gilbert O'Sullivan once sang, "Alone again, naturally."
See, now I would think you'd be talking about Don Dokken.
Yeah, but that might be the most depressing song that ever became a big hit on the charts. I mean, because it contains
Sound of Silence, not more depressing?
No, because Alone Again, Naturally by Gilbert O'Sullivan is literally features the protagonist of the song considering suicide. There's a lyric where he says, "Climbing to the top, I throw myself off."
Okay, yeah, hey.
Yeah, because his love is because his I promised myself I'll treat myself and visit a nearby tower, and climbing to the top, I'll throw myself off because his love is marrying somebody else.
Wow.
Does it get more depressing and dark than that? I'd say no.
I'd say no as well. Send me a link to that song because I don't think I've ever heard it. But either way, I have heard some things, Mace. You've heard some things as well. So let's talk big picture without revealing too much because we don't really know. Nobody really knows. But the way that I teased it yesterday, and we had to do game recap yesterday, so we couldn't get into it. But the way that I framed it, and I believe you will say this is proper. If it's improper, let me know. The Walton Penner Group hears your frustrations. They understand your frustrations. They are considering all options. All options include everybody's gone. All options include just Hackett is gone. All options include Hackett and Payton are gone. All options include Hackett, Payton, and Wilson are gone. I believe all options are on the table for this Walton Penner Group. And this is where I come forward with my faith in that ownership group and faith in their business practices, which have been very successful for every single one in that ownership group. You look at all the success they've had in their business ventures. It's been an incredible journey for each one of them. So Mace, let's talk about big picture because that's what we're focused on. We're not doing the birthday party crap. We're not doing the clickbait stuff. Like we're just talking about this team, how they can get better. But I want to urge to the fans that patience is necessary, but that ownership group hears you. They understand you, and everything is on the table.
Well, everything's on the table, but sometimes it's you've got guardrails of reality that are in there, particularly cap reality, because you say all options on the table, and yes, that it means options on Russell Wilson. But the thing is, the options are somewhat limited based on the reality of the contract and the structure of the salary cap and how. Let's face it. It has come up. I know overthecap.com had an article about it. If you were to cut Russell Wilson, even with a post-June 1 designation next year, you would be talking about taking his cap number for next year from $22 million to $77 million. So you'd have to cut players just to be able to be able to cut Russell Wilson right away. And by the way, on top of that, you'd have by the post-June 1 designation, you'd have it bleed over into 2024 as well. So, there are options that maybe don't conform with reality. Like, I mean, I guess if you could trade Russell Wilson, that's possible. But who take on that contract right now? That's the other thing to consider. So, but this is one of those moments, Cecil, and I've gathered the same thing as well, that nothing is off the table, right?
Right.
And it really is this. And and ownership is very aware of not only what's going on, but also how people are perceiving this. When fans are streaming toward the exits, as overtime beckons against Indianapolis.
And what was that, like week 5?
Yeah. In week 7, when it's a 1-score game, against the Jets, and there's still a very real chance the Broncos would get the ball back, and indeed they did. Believe me, they noticed that when the Broncos were trying a last-ditch drive to tie the game in the final minute, they noticed that the stands were probably about 3/4 empty by the time they went through that drive, okay? Which certainly tells you people had no hope, right?
Right.
You didn't, I mean, I can tell you this, being in Baltimore on Sunday when they had their last drive, when they were down 6 points, that stadium was full, and as you saw at the end, it was rocking.
They were rocking, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
For
also,
sure.
and that Baltimore game, I think, that game on Sunday, it was very illuminating, I believe, because I think one of the things that is of issue here is culture and how the losing culture has kind of seeped into everything, including that when one thing goes wrong, you have one team that believes they're going to lose. Baltimore, fairly successful over the years, has a winning culture. They believe they're going to win. And actually, that was something that I ran by Derek Wolf when I was on the air yesterday with him. And he said exactly that. Baltimore, it's a winning culture. They believe they were going to get it done. Broncos don't believe that right now.
Yeah, and you can tell they're manifesting. We all are like,
Yeah.
and I got several messages. You probably did as well during the game. Like, it's going to be a 10-9 heartbreaker. And I'm like, how is it a heartbreaker when we thought they would lose anyway? But one of the options on the table, Mace, and let's chop it up about this, because cutting Russell Wilson has the salary cap implications. It doesn't make sense, although it is a consideration. It is. To me, it might be bringing in competition at the quarterback position, something that they obviously didn't do this year. And Brett Rippon's just, he's a guy. I don't like talking bad about Brett Rippon because he'll be a head coach someday. And I'm like, I may need to talk to him one day, so I don't want to piss him off when he's a backup. But like, bringing in competition for Russ is also an option that I don't think many people have talked about as what the Broncos could do.
They could have done it today.
They could have, yeah, with Baker Mayfield going to the Rams.
Broncos had the number 3 waiver priority this week. The Rams had the number 4 waiver priority, and Baker Mayfield is the Los Angeles Ram. Look, to me, that would have been a no-brainer claim for me. Absolutely would have done it if I were in the Broncos' shoes. Because on top of everything else, yeah, competition, you want to have a little bit of competition. I think that's fair. If Russell Wilson did not have the contract that he has, if he played another position, we'd be looking at that position and saying, you got to bring in somebody else.
Right.
You got to, at minimum, you got to change the dynamic. You got to shake it up. You got to push. Case Keenum had the same kind of season that Russell Wilson's having back in 2018. And they didn't just bring in competition. They showed him the door, right? Drew Lock struggled in 2020 with a set of numbers, a passer rating that wasn't that far below what Russell Wilson's passer rating is right now. And lo and behold, they brought in Teddy Bridgewater, right? They didn't hand him the job. So if not for this contract, if it were any other player, any other situation, you'd be saying, oh yeah, we got to bring somebody in. So quarterback should not be a sacred cow at this point.
Right.
In this move.
I believe that as well. But I also believe what Tom here says, and I am personally not giving up on Russ, because from everything that you and I've seen from minicamp and mandatory minicamp and OTAs and training camp and practices, Russell's not completely shot. He's not completely washed up. He may not be what he used to be, Mace, but I feel that with a better fit, and Hackett's just not a good fit with Wilson, bottom line, I feel there's something there with Russell that you can work with. You got to run the ball. You got to play great defense. Well, they can do 2 of those things. They need to find a better fit with Wilson. And hey, competition I'm not against. No sacred cow at quarterback, as you said. But also, another year with Wilson, a better system for him. We'll see what we can get from it.
Well, look, the best way out of this is Russ playing at least close to what you would have expected him to be. And so 2023, realistically, although you should bring in competition because at the minimum, you need to have a better backup situation. You should be trying to upgrade every position on the roster. And to me, that includes backup quarterback. And Brett Rippon, again, I think he's a good guy, and I think he's, like you say, probably going to be a coach someday. But he's not the best you can do a backup quarterback. He just isn't. So you upgrade that for that reason alone. But I think part and parcel of this is, with all respect to Russell Wilson, this isn't about what he wants to do. This is about what is best for the team and what is best for the offense. And yeah, perhaps he wants to evolve and go in a different direction so he can play until he's 43 years old. That is something that should not in any way be a consideration. Russell Wilson's 34 years old. This is not about his development. This is about getting the most out of him and out of the team right now. That's all that matters. The notion of playing until 43, it probably, yeah. Does it mean something to Russell Wilson? Yes. It should not mean anything to the Denver Broncos. That's, the goal is, how do you get the most out of him for the 2023 season? How do you get the best Russ that he can be today? Because that you have to find out what the best Russ can be, because if you don't do that, then you're not making an informed decision, because when you get to the 2024 offseason, that is when it starts becoming at least somewhat realistic to say we're moving on. It's not realistic in the next offseason. It just is not, unless you overtly want to tank. And that's not something that I think the Denver Broncos are going to do. But in 2024, if you can't figure things out with Russ in 23, that's when it becomes realistic to begin moving on with a post June 1 designation. And so so these are all things that come into play. Sherry Carter says he needs offensive line and running game. You do need to upgrade both of those areas. But one thing that I think we learned this year about Russell Wilson is that, contrary to what he had been and what you hoped he'd be, he is not the level of quarterback who is going to naturally elevate everyone around him.
Right.
Okay.
And apologies to Peyton Manning's offensive line, but he made those guys look better than they were.
He did in Indianapolis as well. Peyton elevated everybody around him. Patrick Mahomes, as we've seen in Kansas City, they lose Tyreek Hill, they keep right on humming. Patrick Mahomes elevates everyone around him. Josh Allen's becoming an elevate everyone around him guy. But those are like the best of the best. Russell Wilson's not at that level, and there's no guarantee he ever gets back to that level.
Right. And I think this is a bitter pill to swallow for Broncos fans, but imagine the bitter pill for Russell Wilson, because this is a very public shaming, basically, of him, and the realization of he can't be that pocket passer to play another 10 years. He's still got to use his legs. That's why get Jake Plummer him, man. Bootlegs, rollouts, get him on the move that pocket like Sean Payton did with Drew Brees. And it's going to take a strong-willed coach, not Happy Fun Baby Star, but a strong-willed coach to be like, Russ, we're doing this. You want to do this? That's fine. You're not going to do that. We're going to do this. This is what we need you to do. This is what you can do. We'll protect you. We'll run the ball. We'll play great defense. Go out there and do your thing as you, not as who you want to be so you can play longer.
Yeah.
And we need you to play now.
Right. And if he has a problem with that, then fine. You know what? You start planning and go shopping for another quarterback.
Right. And I don't think he will have a problem with it, honestly.
Yeah. This season should have been the really humbling experience for Russell Wilson.
Yes.
If it's not humbling, then I question what's going through his mind. It ought to be humbling, because how can you look at any numbers, anything about production, any metric whatsoever, and say, "Oh wow, I'm doing great"? No, you're not. Russell Wilson, unfortunately for the Broncos, is by every objective measure a bottom tier quarterback.
Yes. And Jeremy brings up something that the Broncos have never done. We remember Vance Joseph saying it's not rebuild, it's reboot, right? He's a reboot.
And John Elway said, he said reload, right?
Yeah, there's a reload. Yeah. Well, they got the wrong re's. The right re is rebuild. Is this a product of this team after the Super Bowl and after it didn't work with Trevor? Like, okay, yeah, I get it. Trevor in 2016 and the defense, whatever. But when that didn't work in 2017 and beyond, is this just a result of that? Not stripping it down to the studs and then rebuilding it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, you look at smart organizations, kind of how they went about things. I mean, I'll take Buffalo for an example, right? Buffalo, when Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane got there to run the show, they knew they had to rebuild the roster. The thing that I thought was really interesting is they had that 9-7 season in 2017 that kind of was out of nowhere. Nobody expected it. But they didn't get fooled by it. They didn't think, "Oh, we're close. Let's do this." No, no, no. They understood that it was that was kind of flukish, and that they had to plow forward with the process, and thus they drafted Josh Allen the following year. And you
And
see how
moved up
that's
to get him.
right, and you see how that's working out. But they didn't get fooled, and they didn't kind of say, "Oh, we're close. We make this tweak, that tweak." You know what? And that the Broncos kind of have to do that, and then it becomes a wider discussion, Cease, about if you rebuild, how long is Russell Wilson around? Are you rebuilding with a quarterback who's 35 next year? Or is he just the guy that you're putting out there as you start the rebuild, and then literally Russell Wilson becomes a bridge to somebody else, right? I mean, that believe it or not, I think Russ has a lot to do with that answer, because look, we've seen a lot of quarterbacks that were really good into their late 30s. So you know what? If Wilson can figure things out, yeah, a rebuild could include him being on the other side of this, but he's going to have to accept that it's going to be done this way. Maybe not the way he intended when he came to Denver, but it's going to be done this way to maximize who and what he is right now. It's not focused on in transforming him into Drew Brees 2.0. Okay, that is off the table. And that's what they have to do. And whoever the head coach is next year, because I think it's certainly likely it's not Nathaniel Hackett at this point. Whoever the head coach is next year is going to have to say, we're doing it this way. You get on board with it. Mm-hmm. That's it.
And a lot of players do that. And again, I don't think it'll be a problem for Russell Wilson, Mace, but players love to know the why. Mm-hmm. And an NFL player will be, a lot like, that good-minded employee, right? I hesitate to say soldier because I never like comparing football to the military. But like, a football player, if you tell them the why, we're doing this because this, they'll go, yes, sir. And they'll go do it. They'll go run through a brick wall for you. And Russell Wilson, there's a lot of misconceptions about him. He's a me guy. I wish he was more of a me guy. Because he's kind of like, I don't know, and I kind of want to do this, but then we'll do this, and like, no. And I think the misconceptions about Wilson is like he has to have it his way. He wants to win. He wants to win. He's never been through this. I know he talks about tough times, and I'm never gonna. When you lose a parent, as I have, as Russell Wilson has, like that is life changing, life altering. But that's different than professional struggles. Your personal life. Now you can take notes from it and you can allegory and all those type of things. Like, what do I learn from a loss of a parent? So Russell Wilson talk about tough times. I've been through tough times, not on the football field.
Yeah.
Now he is. So I want to see how he reacts to that. But I know that Russell Wilson is not what some people believe him to be, is this massive headache. And it's like, no, you get him the right guy, you tell him the why, and he'll listen.
Yeah. And then he has to go along with the why, because the why is going to be taking all considerations of the long-term future off the table. That's just gone. It's just gone. It's about this is the type of quarterback that you are when you've done best, and how do we kind of extract that the best going forward. That's it. That's it. That's all that's done, because what he's tried to do, and when it comes to what the Broncos scheme is, certainly Russell Wilson has a lot to do with what they've done schematically, what they've tried to install, and that's got to be off the table. It's got to be off the table. It's got to be him coming in and running what whoever the coach is wants to do, whatever that coach sees as best. Because what that coach is going to see as best is trying to get the most out of Wilson right now, because that helps the entire team. If the Broncos are going to stop this streak of losing seasons, which is now at 6 years, the first thing that they can do to do that is get the most out of Russell Wilson. Starts there. It starts there, because you know what? It's going to be tough sledding next year, even though you're almost certainly going to have a last place schedule. You're drawing the AFC East in interdivisional play within the conference. Take a look at the AFC East, and you see 4 teams that are all 500 or better.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. You're going to be walking through a minefield again. By the way, you're getting the NFC North, and so that might give you a little bit of a break, because you get Detroit, you get Chicago, get to see
Detroit's
Justin
in a better
Fields.
position. Justin Fields and the Bears are in a better position.
Detroit's a better team right now than the Broncos.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Clearly. Chicago.
Only the
they can't-
Texans are worse.
Yeah. Chicago, maybe not. They can't stop anybody, but they have hope in Justin Fields. Green Bay's a better team than the Broncos, and Minnesota's a much better team than the Broncos.
Right.
And then the bonus game, the 17th game next year, you know what that's on track to be? Washington. Because it's fourth place in the NFC East.
Okay.
Another team that's better than your Denver Broncos.
Right. And
You
we're
get what I'm
talking about
saying.
teams with plenty of quarterback questions. So you got all these teams with Taylor Heineke playing YOLO ball. He's better than your team. So
wow. Yeah. Taylor Heineke is a better quarterback this year than Russell Wilson.
I remember seeing Taylor at the Shrine game, and I was like, if he was 6'4", he'd be a first rounder because he's got moxie. Moxie goes a long ways. Watch Varsity Blues, right? Like Moxie will put you in the right spot.
It went a long way for Russell Wilson, did it not?
It did, yeah.
I mean, let's not forget, this is a guy who was a 9-time Pro Bowler in 10 seasons with the Seahawks. He had a lot of comeback drives. He was clutch, okay? I don't think he simply forgot about all that. I do believe he wanted to make himself into a different kind of quarterback. And he talked so often this offseason. He wants to play into his 40s, you know? And honestly, I remember hearing that, and all Broncos fans got excited, but I got a little bit nervous about that, right? And I got nervous about it because the focus should always be on the here and now. If you take care of the here and now, the future is going to take care of itself.
Yes.
And Jose points out next year the Broncos play Kevin O'Connell and Mike McDaniel, the what could have been schedule. I mean, so you get Justin Fields, that quarterback for the Bears. You get Kevin O'Connell coaching the Vikings. You get Mike McDaniel coaching the Miami
Dolphins. Yep. Yeah, we appreciate you, Andrew, and all of our
for the kind
viewers
words,
out
Andrew.
there. Yeah. By the way, Vicky's posted this twice, so I think before we're out of here, Mason, I have to run a little bit early, but like we have to answer this because Vicky's posted it twice, so she wants to know what about Russell's personal quarterback coach?
Clearly not helping. If he were helping, he would be doing better.
It's Jake Heaps, right?
Jake Heaps.
Yeah. Sorry, Jake. I mean,
who uprooted his life to come out here and join Russell Wilson. He was living up in the Seattle area.
He's a radio guy.
Yeah, he worked for our company.
Yeah.
For our sister station up in Seattle.
Yeah.
And gave all that up to come here and work with Russell Wilson. But clearly it's something's not working. There's too many voices. This equation is not working. Things have to change. And if that means you need to get the personal staff and the personal QB coach out of the building and have it only be whoever coaches quarterbacks next year, Cecil, I would not be opposed to Clint Kubiak coming back in the same role next year, even if you change the staff.
Right.
We know Clint Kubiak's a talented coach. Okay. So I wouldn't be opposed to that at all. Even we know he's a talented coach. I think the last 3 games of the play caller, I don't really hold that against him all that much. Although I think it shows that there are deeper issues than just who was calling the plays.
Yes.
I mean, that
wasn't the easy fix.
Right. You tried it and you had to try it. It didn't work. Okay?
I'm glad they tried it.
Yeah, because you got to press some buttons, right? You got to change things up. Like I will say, I mean, I do, even though the record, the win-loss record doesn't show it, I do think Nathaniel Hackett manages games better than he did before Jerry Rosberg walked in the door. So I think that part was positive. I think that aspect has been better and smoother, even though it hasn't been perfect. The Kubiak change, you can't argue with 10, 16, 10. Or not, pardon me, it wasn't 10. The first 10 was on Hackett, as Titans game. 16, 10, 9. And by the way, that 16 against the Raiders, they had given up at least 20 points in every game before that. And you got 16 on them.
Yep.
Hasn't worked. Some of that's on Russ. Some of that is on, frankly, a lack of talent in a lot of spots right now because of injuries.
I'll quote the 2 Bobs from Office Space, and I think there's about 4 coaches that you need to replace. And then we'll see. You don't have to clean house. You don't have to clean out everybody. But there's 4 guys. You'll be shocked to know they're all on offense that need to be cleaned out of this.
You've said one name quite a bit this year.
Butch Berry.
Yeah,
the other one's Wheatley. I've heard not so good things about him in the running backs room. So
yeah, and
we'll see.
And he replaced a guy that is really good at his job, and that's Curtis Modkins.
Yes, Modkins is excellent at his job. So there was a couple head scratches, like you didn't really get rid of Munchak, you didn't really get rid of Modkins, and you did, and you replaced him with guys that the results aren't there. The buzz behind those two also is not positive. So Justin Outen, Nathaniel Hackett, Tyron Wheatley, Butch Berry, done. And then we'll see. Mace, final thoughts as we tie a bow on today's program.
I think today, for those who are regular viewers of this show, today is basically the start of pulling out the binoculars. I would if I had mine, and looking over the horizon, because it's about the future now. The next 5 weeks are prelude to the real season, which is the off season, and we go from there. This is all about 2023, and I think we're going to dive into some of these players on the fringe of the roster. We talked a lot about Montreal Washington. We're going to talk about some others over the next few weeks who I think are part of the solution.
They're getting the spotlight, and then we're going to talk about the draft. And I dare you to try and have better draft content than me and Mace at DenverFan.com. It's not going to happen. And if you go to the Senior Bowl and you're there to chase chunky interns and not even bring a notebook to practice, we will call you out publicly, because like it's time to put in the work, baby. The Broncos need the work. They don't need guys that just go and do nothing. You need actual work, and we're going to put in the work for you, and then tune in right here on Orange and Blue today. He is Andrew Mason. You follow him on Twitter at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Lammey, saying be safe, be kind, know that you are appreciated. Stay tuned. And as always, I ask if you stay frosty.